What is one thing that you want listeners to know or hear or be encouraged by in terms of progress in author life and progress towards your goals and progress towards, more profit, more readers, more reads, all of that stuff?
Just learning to not diminish the power of small and realize that you do have to practice to do things in small chunks. It can take some skill to learn how to use those small chunks of time, those small bits of income. So don't get discouraged.
So it's like you actually have to actively work to make it small, because it's really easy for us authors to make things really big, huh?
Yeah.
We get A-pluses and overcomplicating.
Yep, pretty much.
Sound good? Want to hear more? Well, that is in store for you today in this episode of the Author Culture Podcast. Hey there, I'm Janeen Ippolito, and I help authors just like you write boldly, market smart, and find your creative success in a chaotic publishing world. We also celebrate sci-fi and fantasy stories because, hey, I'm a sci-fi and fantasy author, and it is in fact my podcast. So whether you're showing up to get more writing craft, get marketing tips, get some publishing clarity in a crazy world, or just nerd out about storytelling and fandoms and genres, you are in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. Now, let's dive into this fantastic episode with the amazing E.J. Kitchens, where we're talking all about how small, simple steps can be a game changer in your author life and in your author success, how author culture sometimes makes this more complicated than it has to be, and make sure that you listen all the way to the end, because we also dive into 2 critical things you need to help your incremental steps, help your step-by-step simple goals and simple habits actually be successful. So listen to the end, because we get right into those juicy secrets, and it will really help you if you found yourself getting stuck before when you're trying to create habits. Plus, we also share a lot about our own struggles and successes, so you get to learn from our experience and have someone there on the journey with you, because good grief, you can work really hard on this and sometimes things just don't work out. And so it's really helpful to know not just when people succeed, but also when those failures or just things not working happen and how you respond to that. I am so excited that you're here today. So let's dive into this great interview with E.J. Kitchens. So when we're talking about making things simpler and taking smaller steps, what is one thing that you think that more authors need to do, or one step you think they need to take to really find that simplicity and make that kind of progress they're looking to make?
One thing I think we need to do is just prepare, actually. Just spend a moment thinking about, okay, what can I do in my small chunks of time or with my small bits of income? How can I make this work, instead of just saying I've got to do something all the time, or I've got to do something with this and this and this, and just take a step back, think about your bigger goal, and then just break it down a little bit into those carryable, manageable pieces. And it's okay, I can do this. I just need to, have this, have Scrivener on my phone so I can work on the book during lunch or something like that. Just prepare, think about it ahead of time so that you can step right into doing what you need to do.
Yeah, and I think intentionality can sound like a buzzword or something that makes you think of, people sitting in front of their journal and sort of meditating, but it actually really does help. I mean, it goes back to that old proverb, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care kind of thing. If you think a little bit ahead of time, then you can intentionally do one thing instead of, jumping right into something. And then you find yourself overwhelmed and you're not making any of the progress that you're wanting to make because you didn't think about it ahead of time. It can be challenging. I know for some of our listeners out there, particularly if maybe you veer towards the ADHD side of things, then you're well, but I get energized from jumping into things, and having to sit down and think kind of is a buzzkill, and I get it. But it also really isn't going to help fuel you for that long-term progress you're looking to make. So I know maybe some of you are listening and going, well, I can totally binge a book, or I can totally binge this, and I'm a fan of you working with that, but also the data around just doing small, simple things consistently is really, really hard to ignore. And y'all know that I like data on this podcast. And so, Elizabeth, you and I have known each other for a bit. I think we've been in each other's circles for like over 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
I think I have emails from you like back in 2019 or 2018. And so that's been a bit.
Yeah, you
And
edited one of my books that came out in 2019. No, yeah, 2019, I think it was.
yeah, you were one of my final proofreading clients, which I'm not ashamed to say. And I'll say this right here, proofreading is I can do it and I'm fine at it, but I am such a perfectionist that I actually took it off my client roster because I would get too stressed out doing it for people, and then I would send that document to the client and going, I know I missed one thing. Is this even valid? Can I even do this? I'm like, this is just too much stress. I'm sure there's people who get way more joy out of this service than I do.
Yeah, it's not my favorite thing either.
And I know there's some people it is. I know out there, you proofreaders, there are some of you who just get great joy in going over a manuscript 10 times and proofreading it. God be with you. That is a gift.
I know. I don't like slowing down to look at every letter. That's just not my speed.
And talking about slowing down, though, when you're talking about goals and doing things in simple steps, it does require slowing down a bit. And you and I reconnected recently at a workshop at the Railmakers Conference, Railmakers 2025 Conference, which had a lot of useful stuff about taking small incremental steps. That was encouraging to both of us. And so we're going to be talking about that some today and sharing some of that wisdom with all of y'all, plus some of our own thoughts from our own experiences with that. And hopefully also giving you some encouragement so you practice this in your own life. It's not something that's always easy, but it is worth it. And you really can achieve your goals faster, even if you're out there and you're thinking, Janeen, you don't know my life. I have like 5 kids and I have this and I have that, or you have a ton of health conditions or you have to work a ton. This whole method works regardless of those things. It's like one of those timeless truths that you really can't get away from. And I'm here to help you get your books written and out to readers. And Elizabeth is cool with that too. And of course, we both want to do that in our own author lives. That would be good. And so that's what we're talking about today on author culture. And so a heads up on this, the workshop we went to sourced a lot of its material from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And we're also going to be taking some tips from like what we've learned in our lives. And I was a teacher for 8 years, so there's a lot of things I've osmosed from helping students get their research papers written, which taking a non-writer and getting them to write a 10 or 20-page paper is a mission. It's a thing. So that's what I'm bringing to the table here with this. And Elizabeth, share a little bit of your background for those of our audience members who may not be as familiar with you.
Hey, so I was one of those people who did not realize I wanted to be a writer until after grad school. So I ended up in a job at a university with a biology major that I actually did some teaching, which I really enjoyed, but a lot of it was not. It was just more staff help prepare for labs. And I had a lot of downtime and I was bored. And so I started writing just because of that. And then I realized like, oh, I really like this. It explains why I think the way I think. And so I started pursuing writing. And so I've written over a dozen books and a bunch of short stories and things. So that's been kind of what I've been doing, just trying to write more, and got an editing certificate, things like that. And I had to, when you're working and trying to write and do life and all that stuff, you have to learn how to take small steps sometimes to get big things done.
Yeah, and to just peel a little more the layers off here for this when we're talking about all of this and about success. And I will also shout out to Elizabeth. She has a really fantastic publishing book out there for authors that walks them through the steps of that. And what's the name of it? It is because I was going to try to pull it off a bookshelf over there. And that is a great step-by-step guide to just demystifying everything. And what I love about that is not that you have like the ultimate source of things, but you really do a great job with compilation.
Thank you.
And when, in this world, when you can just get things on Google, but then it gives you a huge list, or AI gives you a huge list of these things, the ability to think critically about what you need for you is even more important. And I really appreciated about the book that you kept saying, but also this, but also think about this, and also you may not need this, so that people can sift through their options instead of just telling them one way.
Different books have different things and different authors, so there's always a little flexibility, and especially everything changes too. So you need to know your options.
And so I want to shout out Elizabeth there because she has done that, and she does have online courses, or at least one online course, right?
Yeah, one online course. It's still kind of in beta. I need to go back through and re-record it and make more professional looking slides and catch typos, things like that. Because it was a lot of work getting it done. I didn't have the time on the first run through to make it all perfect, but I'm going to go back through and get it done really well this time at small steps, because it's really overwhelming, because there's about 30 hours of material in that course, because I went through how to write a novel, how to self-edit a novel, and so it was a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot to go through right now. And I'll tell you, of course, the name of the game here at Author Culture is Imperfect Action. Is done is better than perfect. As someone who's also getting some of my courses out there again after they were in beta mode, and I'm like, okay, just do it. Just put it out there. It is good. Just do it. One of the basic ways to do that is to take a little bit of thought and focus on those small steps. When we're thinking about small steps, we're not thinking about 10 different steps, right, Elizabeth? We're not saying, okay, small steps, but on 5 different projects. That's not what we're doing, right?
No. So take a small step. An example might be, I have, a big edit I need to do. I was editing some stuff for my dad, and 300 and something page book that I need to edit. And I don't have that much time to just sit down and do it. So what I did was I just pulled up the PDF on Notability on my phone or on my iPad, and when I have a lunch break, I'll just edit for a few minutes during my lunch break. I'll edit for a few minutes. If I get to work early, I'll edit before I go into work, and just small chunks. It all adds up, and I was able to get the book done without all the stress. It wasn't, I need to find 3 hours to sit down and do this. It's like, oh, I have 5 minutes. Oh, I have 15 minutes, and it gets done without the stress.
Absolutely. And so that is really one of the key ways that authors get books written and marketed and out there to readers. But it can be one of the most difficult things because it's really easy to feel a little bit discouraged with that. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. So if you're listening right now and going, that sounds great, Elizabeth, but also I'm alone. I don't have a fancy office, which, by the way, I don't. My office is in a corner of our living room right now.
Yeah, who has an office?
There are people. I mean, they all put their office pictures on Insta or stuff, and they have these really pretty offices. And I'm like, I record in a corner of my dining room. That's what I do, and that's where I am. And so, for those of you who might be like, well, I just can't do that, we're also going to give you some encouragement and some tips for how to keep yourself going, because it is worth it, and you can do it in your own way. So don't give up. All right, just stick with us. We're going to get there with that. And one of the key things with small steps that I find as well, and this is, again, being a little personal here, I'm really good at small steps, but I'm really bad at saying no to 5 billion projects. And
yeah.
And one of the things I would tell people is, I was talking with my coach, and I'm like, okay, it feels like I am trying to drive 5 cars at once. Guess what? When you try to drive 5 cars at once, picture this idea of getting out of the car and getting to the next car, you don't get very far. So I think the first thing really when you're thinking about making those steps and making those simple steps is the particular workshop we were in, I think, had 5 or 6 categories. But if that doesn't work for you, choose one. At most, just start with one. You can do one. And then maybe 2. Maybe you're going to do one thing where it's with your writing and one thing where you're building your author platform, and that's it. 6 can be great, but if you're the kind of person that can turn 6 different areas into 6 million, then just give yourself 1 or 2. Because projects can, I don't know what happens. I can get one idea and that explodes into 5, and then I'm like, oh, and I have to do all of them. And that's not how you make progress.
No.
And one of the really important things for that, and again, I can speak this out of my own experience, is that if you try to do 5 things at once, or even 6 things at once, and you don't have the bandwidth for it, then you don't get the satisfaction of getting anything done. And that can make you even more discouraged. That completion gives you that positive feedback that says, oh, look, I'm someone who gets things done.
Yeah. Or even if you do get one of your 6 things done, I get to take a break and then start something new. You still have that, I have stuff undone feeling.
And then it leads you to really feeling like a failure when you're not, but you're just asking too much of yourself.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, believing that small things can matter. Because I know in, Dave Ramsey's financial piece, a lot of people would go into that. We just feel overwhelmed. Maybe you have tons of debt, or maybe you just can never save enough. And managing money just seems impossible. But then he kind of breaks it down. It's no, you can make small payments toward your debts and snowball it, I think he calls it, and then you have no debt, and then you start building your savings account. It's small for a big impact, and he just makes it feel achievable. So writing a book or two a year, gosh, I don't have hours to sit down at a time and write. Well, maybe you can just spend 30 minutes of your lunch break jotting down notes. That on those rare times when you do have an hour to sit down, you can turn those notes into a scene a lot faster than if you just sat down for your hour with nothing. So do something, whether it's write down dialogue, write down your notes, brainstorm your characters, have that ready while you're walking, while you're doing the dishes, when you're in the grocery line. Do those small things so that when you have those chunks of time, you're ready to go because you're prepared for it.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm speaking as someone that, again, if you don't know, I have 25 books out, plus a couple more coming out, actually, because I'm doing that. So I think I have 3 more planned for between now and next year. I'm not thinking about too much or I'll freak out. But I have the covers in place and everything, and I'm just kind of doing the one step. Because if you're like me also out there, listeners, you might be someone who doesn't struggle with the organizing, but you struggle with the perfectionism. And if you think too much at what you're doing, you're going to go, there's no way I can do that to my ridiculously high standards. I quit. That doesn't actually help, but it's your brain trying to protect yourself. So I don't think about it too much. I just do the next step, and then look, it's done. Isn't that great? But I just came out of a time period for the last 2 months where there was major personal loss and crises. I was just scraping through each day, and I'm kind of there still, but I'm on the other side of it. So, things are a little more settled down into a new normal. But during that time, being able to take tiny steps was one of the things that helped me to make it through. And so if you're listening to this and going, wow, this is a new skill, I'm not sure if I have this. If you've successfully made it through any kind of hard season in your life, and I'm assuming you have because you're here, in some way you have this skill already. You know what it's like to say, okay, my kid's in the hospital, I have to make everything really small to get through this. I have to just make sure eating is happening each day. And so your brain already knows how to reduce the complexity to get through hard times. You just have to take that skill and say, okay, how do I use that when things aren't going crazy? How do I use that skill of making things small when there's not an emergency? And I think it was John Acuff, who I also listen to quite a bit, and he's talking about how to get yourself into productive mode when you're not in an emergency, when you have to make everything productive. And, you don't need that external stimulus of, oh no, people are coming over, I have to clean the house kind of thing. And we're going to talk about a little more about that in a second. But I just want to encourage you, you have this skill set already, because it's one of those things that get you through those hard times when suddenly you lose your job and suddenly you're really good at focusing on 1 or 2 things. Hopefully. Maybe not, but hopefully you're good at focusing on 1 or 2 things and getting them done. So just take that skill and learn how to use it mindfully in your writing, even when there's not an immediate disaster coming around every single corner. And during that time, I got a 22,000 word novella written by dictating 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. Small steps. That was
yeah,
big result.
Yeah. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just doing it because it was this was my release. I just sat down and I just talked for 15 minutes a day and ignored all the difficult things in my life. And that's something else, making whatever you're doing in small increments positive, because then you're going to keep doing it and returning to it. But that happened. And so it is possible to do these things. You just have to create an environment that's conducive and take things slow and simple and consistently. So we've talked about, making things small, and we've talked about making things simple. So when in doubt, do one thing a day, maybe two, work on one project. Okay, I can't do anything else, but I'm going to get my book done. I can do two things. I'm going to get my book done, and I'm going to grow my email list. I know growing your email list can be like a huge tarantula of things. But, work on one thing once a day for that. That's it. But besides that, you also need to be consistent about it. Right, Elizabeth?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a book called When Helping Herbicide Alleviate Poverty Without Hurting the Poor and Yourself. And kind of one of the big ideas that I really liked from the book that pertains to author life was just kind of recognizing that there are different solutions for different stages of being kind of in need. So as authors, we need time to write our books and do marketing. We need money to hire our editors and our cover designers to take courses, go to conferences, and all those things. And they can feel overwhelming. If you just look at the price tag of a conference and what it would cost to stay at the hotel and travel and all that, it can be really overwhelming. But if you think about it in small chunks, it's something you can do. But in this book, they talk about you have the big immediate needs, kind of the acute thing going on. Tornadoes come through my area all the time. So after tornadoes gone through, you need housing, you need toiletries, you need food and water right off. But then through the process of kind of restoration of the area, you have different needs. And so kind of recognizing that the deadline that you have next week, that's not a small step thing. That's an acute need. You may just have to take a day off of work. But the book that you want to get done next year or 6 months from now, that's totally doable in small steps because you're doing it consistently and you're just showing up day after day after day, doing those small chunks, the 15-minute a day to get your novella written, the 15 minutes a day to get the book edited that I did, for my dad's stuff. So just kind of recognize it. There's some problems that are really big and that need big ways to address them, like taking off of work or, have a writing retreat weekend to get it done. But there are the things that you can have the smaller long-term work on. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Just, small, long-term, you can get it done. It's totally manageable. Just do your small things. Put in that, single Lego at a time to build your masterpiece or the single puzzle piece at a time. Color the single square to make your pretty coloring sheet. Just kind of have your overall goal that you're trying to achieve, and that way you can what your bricks are to make your build Rome one brick at a time sort of thing. You just need your big plan and what you're doing at each step, and just keep doing it.
Yep, absolutely. And then, of course, when you have those extra chunks of time, when you just want to binge and get the book done, if you've been working consistently and you're I'm near the end, maybe I just won't sleep tonight, that's okay. We're not saying binging isn't a thing. Sometimes you have that space. You have the writer's retreat. You have the inspiration. You have the chance to sit with someone who's super smart about ads, and you just say, okay, we're going to create 10 today because you know what you're doing. That's worthwhile too. But it's also the consistent actions between that make those things even more productive. So say if you're I'm going to binge the ending of the book, you wouldn't have made it to the ending of that book if you hadn't been consistent to get to that point and then said, okay, I got 5,000 words left. I have a day off tomorrow. We're just going to do it. We're going to see if we can do it and get it done. So these things, it's not an either or thing. It's not something where you're oh, well, I'm just a binge person or I'm just a slow and steady person. Sometimes, you have to hit a deadline. You have to do an all-nighter even if you don't like it. Or sometimes, you have to be consistent even if you'd rather just be able to binge everything. And the more that you have that flexibility with your brain, and I know it's tricky depending on your brain, so just be where you are, but give it your best shot where you are. But the more you can do that, the more that you're going to have the versatility to work through the ebbs and flows of life. Because, of course, no one here is writing in a vacuum. My life is a bit more stable now than it was. It was 2 months of not, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay stable this whole time. That's not where we live. That's not the environment where we live, right, Elizabeth?
Right. I know, I don't like writing in small chunks. I want to sit down and just be in the zone for hours. it can take me a long time to get into the story. So it just kind of helps too if I recognize, if I only have 5 minutes today, 10 minutes today, I'm not going to think about like writing a book. I'm going to think about, or even writing a scene. It's like, I'm just going to write some dialogue, or I'm just going to take some notes. I'm just going to do this like one small thing. And then that'll get me through it. Often if I do one thing, it's easier to do the next thing. And then when I have more time, I have a lot more to work with to move on.
And I like how you're working with your brain there instead of trying to say, well, it's really uncomfortable for me to try to get into the zone in 5 minutes, but I'm going to force myself. You're like, no, I'm going to just do something smaller.
Yeah.
Get the quick win, right?
Yeah, I like to think about like writing in layers. Just do whatever layer you feel like doing then and fill in later.
And it's the same thing with marketing. And that, I think, can be even more discouraging because we hear about the writing thing and, every step, and we know that. Like, you hear people who write books slowly, they write books fast, etc. There's a variety of people there. But in marketing, as soon as you have to, like, step into that pool, even when you have a win, it can feel like a loss if you compare yourself, which, again, we don't do that here. But if you compare yourself to someone, you're like, oh, look, I got 10 more newsletter subscribers. And then there's someone with like 10K. Am I never going to get there? I don't think so. My life is horrible. And now my little piddly 10 subscribers feels like nothing. Like, it just can get in your head that fast. And I do market research. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I've researched too much. I'm done, because now I'm feeling very cynical about everything.
Yeah. Or like you go to an event and you sell like $500. It's like, wow, that was amazing. And you talk to someone else. You're like, yeah, I sold like, nearly $3,000. And they're like, oh, I don't feel so good now. So yeah, definitely not good to compare. Keep your wins.
And we can discuss that. Like, I think that'll probably be just another episode, because that also, there's a way you can kind of work through that and go, okay, that made me feel a bit smaller, but do I want to do what they're doing to sell that much? Do I want to live how they're living to sell that much? I know people who are professionals who like go to conference every weekend or a convention every weekend and sell thousands of books, and that's how they make their livelihood. That's great for them. If I sat with myself, I wouldn't want to make my livelihood that way. I'd get burned out really fast. So a quick little side note there. One of the things you can ask yourself when you're having that place of, wow, I had this win, but they had a bigger win, is, this is a great lifestyle for them. Would I really want to do what they're choosing to do? Make those sacrifices and choices they're making to achieve that? Maybe I can be content with where I am, or maybe I want to do that. And it helps you to think about it more in terms of choices and less in terms of this is like unfair or I failed or something.
Or you could just think about like, wow, like that's possible. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
Tell me what you did. How can I achieve that? So just, it's just all about your mindset. Like how are you going to handle this? And it should be like, oh, like I can learn from this. That's amazing for you. Like I want people to get your books. That's great. It's just one of those like challenges. Like you shouldn't feel bad like that you feel that way exactly. You just change what you're thinking. Like, don't get stuck in like the guilt. Oh, I'm an envious person. I'm just so horrible. But like, no, it's like, that's kind of human nature. It's like, okay, I'm going to stop this. Then I'm going to, be happy for them, learn, or decide, that's not really for me. It's not worth the cost for me.
Yeah. Yeah. As I heard someone else say, be curious. When you see someone else who's achieving something that you might want to achieve, or you're envious of, or you're, just wondering about, don't default to, oh, they're doing this and I'll never have that. Go to, okay, I'm curious. How is that working? Like, as you said, asking the questions. How did you do that? What's your life like where you're doing this? What does that look like? And, just get to know them as a person and listen. And then, from there, as you're thinking through it, you can say, okay, does that apply to me? Or is that not really something I can do in my life season? I'm going to do something different. I think now, we've talked about how you need to choose small steps. And we've talked about not just small, but simple. Don't make things really complicated. And if you're someone who is like, wow, you keep saying taking things small, but my small is, complicated, then simplify it. And that is okay. Small and very simple wins the race. That's totally fine. Again, no one's compelling you to write, so you can literally define exactly what small and simple looks like for you.
We put too much pressure on our decisions because like perfectionism is like, what if it's the wrong decision? It's like, I'm going to decide to look for cover designers today in my 5 minutes, or I'm going to look for editors today. It's not really that important. It's not like a huge moral decision. Just choose one and like look for your cover designer, and that's your progress toward publishing. Or like, I'm going to write dialogue today. That's your progress. So it's just kind of like releasing the pressure on the decision. Like, is it going to be wrong? No, it's just a decision. You just need to make the decision and go with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you choose the wrong cover designer, you can get another cover. It is okay.
Yeah.
Like that's allowed. If you put your book out there, and especially for indies, if you put your book out there and go, oh, it's not really performing well, or maybe I didn't say what I wanted to say, you can update it, and that is okay. This is a no shame zone for that, because that is even the most product driven people who are product driven update their stuff all the time. How many times has McDonald's tweaked their logo and the way their restaurants look? It's the most professional thing you can do to update your stuff. So anytime you're thinking, well, I have to be perfect the first time, there's literally no retail industry where they're trying to be perfect the first time.
And nobody expects you to be psychic and know that all of a sudden trends are going to change or something.
Exactly. So we're thinking small, we're thinking simple, we're thinking, again, consistent, which is where we're going to thinking about how do you reinforce yourself and give yourself encouragement for that consistency. Because, we talk about, that 5 minutes a day, that 10 minutes a day. It can get in your head where you're like, but did it really matter? Like, I researched a cover designer and I emailed them. The next day I found out they weren't available. Was that worth my time? And now, of course, logically we can say, well, yes, because now you know information, but it can feel discouraging. So you have to find a way to immediately give yourself a win, or otherwise have a bit of a encouraging cheerleading squad as you're moving ahead to do that consistent habit and that consistent routine. Because you're not going to have that big result right away. You can work hard for a month doing small, simple steps, and your end result is still months away. And that can be tricky. So what are ways that you give yourself positive reinforcement or encourage yourself as you're taking these steps?
One way is just the sort of I check the box sort of a thing. I'm the sort of person who's I should add that to my to-do list just so I can check it off. Just reminding yourself that you did something. You may not see it, but you're still doing something. So it's just sort of a mindset. I'm actually showing up. I'm being consistent. I may not see it yet, but it's going to be there in the end. And part of the thing is just that consistency. So you could add that to your to-do list. So I did something. May not have had the impact yet, but I did something. So I'm still taking another step and another step. I haven't given up on the dream. So I guess it's just a mindset. It's I'm still working, even if it's slow.
And you're still collecting data. So going back to my recent podcast where it was all about, it's data. You don't have enough data. I'll have someone who comes up and said, I did 2 weeks of this consistent marketing thing. I said, 2 weeks is nothing. Tell me when you're doing 6 weeks. Tell me when you're doing 6 months. Then you have enough data. And I tell that to myself. My goal this year was simply to get 1 episode a week. And every time I go, but this channel, but that channel, okay, what is your goal this year? 1 episode a week. Okay, then there we go. And are we going to look at metrics? No, because I'm going to get a year's worth of data first after I get used to doing 1 episode a week. So I'm in the same boat with you guys. It can be really easy to just want to go and look at those metrics right away, but that's not going to help you be consistent. You can also just build in simple cues. For me, getting into the writing place is sometimes hard, especially if I only have 15 minutes and I'm okay, I need to do 15 minutes of dictation, but how do I snap into it? I've always had playlists in my books, but I've been very mindful about using song cues as triggers. So I'll have 1 song per book that I literally listen to only and always before I start writing. And it kind of tells my brain, okay, when we listen to this song, that means we're going to switch into this writing brain and we're going to just start dictating and we're just going to say whatever and we're going to go for 15 minutes and then we're going to stop. So those kind of cues can be helpful.
Yeah, I was working on finishing my Of Magic Made series. It was going to be a short story. It ended up being a 600,000 word series of 4 books. And there were 2 characters that had 2 dialogue scenes for. I came up with it when I was writing book 1 in like 2020, and I couldn't get those scenes in until book 4 in like 2024. So I've been thinking about these scenes for like years, and I was writing the book on deadline, and I was thinking like, okay, I have these scenes. This is going to move super fast because I already have like most of it written. But then I could not connect the two scenes. I just like could not do it. And so what I did was I just decided, okay, I'm just going to think about the setting a little bit more. It was in this kind of exotic, Arabian-ish city, and I love courtyards. So they have courtyards there. I just love that style. So I love plants too. So I started looking at plants in courtyards in desert cities, and I realized that like, oh, they have like persimmon trees there. And so I was just visualizing, a courtyard with a fountain and a persimmon tree. And for some reason, that like small detail just like brought everything to life. I was able to visualize where they were going, connect the scenes, and then for weeks I would be just doing things, and then this image of this desert courtyard with the persimmon tree would just come to my mind. It was like I'm seeing the real world, and then I'm also seeing this courtyard, and it was just this gateway into the story. And so anytime I sat down to write, I would just think about this scene, this image, and I could get into the story that way. So it was just like one little thing, because I like courtyards, I like plants, and just using that one thing got me this image to help me get into the story. Mm-hmm. So like with your auditory cue, mm-hmm. if you're a visual person, like you can also try something like that. Just imagine the scene with something that you like, courtyards and plants, and that may help you kind of get into the writing zone faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's people do all the time. I know someone mentioned in the workshop they had like certain kinds of tea that they just treated themselves to. You are allowed to use food cues. We are not weight loss experts here. No one's going to yell at you for your diet. If your thing is after I get my stuff done, I get a piece of chocolate, you eat that piece of chocolate. Like, yeah. That is allowed. Again, at the same time, like, don't be super unhealthy. Like, we want you to stay mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy in a way that makes sense for you. But also, like, there are some things, like for writing, I think in some ways when you make that progress forward, it can feel good. And that can be a sense of, okay, I did it. And you can have like the auditory cues, the visual cues. I love what you said with the world building there and making that part of your cue. Like I think especially for science fiction and fantasy authors, which we both are, that's an unfair advantage we have. You can make your world building something you want to live in. And it's cool. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can do this in other fiction genres too, but we really can do it. Like you can put something in your world building that just makes you excited to tell your story because that thing is cool. Like, that's why people put dragons in things, or at least that's why I put dragons in things.
That's one reason this book became a 4-book series, because there was a place that I really wanted them to go based on, I think it's St. Catherine's in the Sinai Peninsula. Like, it was a monastery where they didn't have a gate in the monastery. Like, for a while, the only way in was over the wall in a basket. Mm-hmm. And, like, they had, like, ancient biblical manuscripts and stuff here. So I was like, this is so cool. And I couldn't get them there in the first book, and then I eventually got them there, but it was in like book 4. But I got them there to that cool place.
So that can be great, but then for marketing, sometimes it can be harder because, of course, marketing doesn't have that feedback of creativity, and sometimes you don't even want to be there. And sometimes, like if you're doing ad creation or stuff, you're like, great, I get to sit down, make an ad, feel completely incompetent, know that I'm going to have to do this for 3 months and spend my budget doing this just to figure out what I'm doing. Where's my incentive here? Like, it just doesn't come with the built-in feels. And so that's where I'll say again, get in a place where other people are supporting you and saying, good job, we did an ad. Like, find someone and say, hi, you're my friend and you like to encourage. I need you to get really excited when I make an ad or when I check my data. Please just get really excited because no one cares. I don't care, but I need to do it. It will help me sell books. So just be excited for me.
I guess, it's like, do you want to go, on social media to sell your books, or you just want to do an ad passively on Amazon? And I would rather do a passive ad than make memes. But there's this author that I love, but I only discovered her through Amazon ads, and like I saw her ads for like months, maybe a year before I actually bought the book. I loved the cover, but I just wasn't sure if it was like my thing. But I just kept seeing it and seeing it and seeing it, and then eventually I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy the book. And so I bought the book. So your ads may not work for a long time, but they still are like chipping away at the people who are seeing them.
So you have my permission to find Sane, legal, emotional, and physically healthy ways to give yourself rewards after making ads or doing other hard marketing things. Because unless you're a marketing person by nature, you don't get that sense of satisfaction. And so you may just need to make a rule that says, okay, after I do an ad, I get to have like a piece of candy. Or after I get an ad, I get to watch one YouTube video that's funny. Or after I get to do an ad, there is one book that I only get to read that I'm looking forward to, but I only get to read after I do an ad, or after I do a social post if you're doing a personal brand on socials, or after I update my back matter, which is important, but who loves to do it, or, after I do this. And of course, in the future, as you have time and income, you can hire out these things, but you still have to tell someone to do them, which is not so much fun either. Like, I have a couple of assistants, but I still have to tell them what to do, which is like, okay, I'm not going to complain. I have an assistant who is here to help me. I am going to write a whole list of things that this assistant needs to do, and then I'm going to get myself a piece of chocolate, or I'm going to go on a walk, or I'm going to do something else. Like, for those things that don't have much inherent satisfaction, unless you really, really get excited about that kind of process, build in immediate incentives and like just reinforce yourself with those incentives like right away, because sometimes we have to do hard things, especially if you do want to sell books, and especially if you want to do them in a way that makes sense for you, which means, I want to do ads, even though they can feel painful and hard in some ways. I don't want to have to be on socials. This is easier. Or conversely, maybe you're someone who likes being on videos. Well, guess what? Then you got to make your 10 videos for the week. And maybe you run out of energy after the first 5, or you run out of zip. So go off, give yourself an incentive, go back, finish them.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciated from the workshop was just like spending $1 a day on ads, because we think, we have to have a lot of money for ads. But it's like $1 a day on Amazon, they're probably not going to spend that. So that's $30 max to get your book in front of people. That's probably less. And so I tried that. And my ads, I did 2 ads. They've been running for about a month. Like, they haven't done much of anything, to be honest, but they're there. And so I can go look at them and tweak them and learn from that. I'll give them some more time, because, I do know that sometimes people see an ad for a long time before they actually click on it or buy anything. So, but I'm, trying it out. I'll keep fiddling around once I have more data.
Yep. And I'm in the place where I need to get more books out to make my ads more profitable, because they're profitable, but they're not enough. And I want to be able to scale them. So, having to get books out both because I love the books, but also, having the more books you have, then the more you have to sell. But I also need to scale my ads. And that's kind of scary, because once you start out with like one a day, then you have to go, okay, what about $2 a day? What about this much a day? And you're like, that could be bad. But, this is how we grow. And so one thing I'm thinking about is, okay, if I start out small, what's an increment up I can do? I don't have to go to the highest level, but what's something more I can do? So say if you're someone who's listening to this and going, okay, you guys, I do have 1 or 2 goals, but maybe I need to add a 3rd one. Maybe I have to do the 1% on 3 different areas because I've already made 2 work and I have time. Then just go to 3. Don't go to 6. And I think that can be a trigger too for us. So when you're in a place where you're starting simple and small and you can add little bits, then you think again, I have to add everything. No.
Yes, that is definitely a temptation.
And if you like to improve, when I was taking some different YouTube things, and they said, okay, make each video 1% better than the previous one. Not 5%, not 15%. Make each one 1% better. Maybe you do something different with this. And it can be so hard because you get to editing. You're like, I could add 15 million different toys here and then background music and I don't know. But that's not sustainable. Now you've made it overcomplicated. Now you've made it something you can't be consistent about.
And this is where you just stop doing anything. So you need to learn how to tell yourself no.
Yeah.
So you can tell yourself yes to one
exactly.
big thing and then one more big thing or little thing to add up.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about this and going, okay, well, I've gotten the baseline, but now I want to do a little more. Do a little bit more. Don't do a lot more. So maybe you have your 2 ads and now you're going to try to scale them, or you're not going to suddenly do 1 million more ads, or you're not going to suddenly say, okay, now I'm going to do ads on 5 different platforms. Okay, I have two. Yeah.
just one platform.
One platform.
Master this one, and then then move on, or move. Oh, add to.
And never underestimate the power of encouragement. And never underestimate your need to sometimes ask for that encouragement, even if it feels silly. Like I occasionally like talk to a friend and say, hey, I did this. Tell me I'm awesome. I'm like, you're awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Or like, tell me to not do these 5 different things and only do one. Tell me to focus.
Yes. So that encouragement and that support and community is vital, and you need it. It's not really optional as you're trying to like make progress. And so again, if you're taking this past any kind of hobby and you're like break even, profit, maybe not full time, but a really good side hustle at least, or I want to be, I don't want to be going in the hole for this. I don't just see it as a hobby. I want to be professional about this in some way. If you're doing that, community is a given. That's why business organizations have so many business organizations. That's why they're always networking and talking to each other, because you need it.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not something that is optional at all. So encouraging to get that community. If you're listening to this, thank you for part in this community, because that's why one of the reasons I put this out there is to create that space. And make sure that when you're tackling these things, you are getting that encouragement, because you need it. I need it. We all need it. Because guess what? Your reward for finishing one book is writing the next one. And your reward for doing one ad is doing the next one. Or, okay, now I get to work on my newsletter, or now I get to do these things. So it's kind of an ongoing game. Someone I said, think about it as an infinite game, and so I'll borrow that. I'm not sure which book that was from, but there was some book that talks about, looking as an infinite game instead of an infinite chore list. And I'm like, I need to look into that.
Yeah.
Gamifying things. And so think about ways that you can make it joyful and fun so that you keep doing it. I know if you come from a background where it's like, but this is hard work and we must do it in hard ways. Yes, but also there's no rule against making it fun along the way, and it will make it easier. So do the hard thing, eat a piece of chocolate, curl up in a blanket, do what you need to do in a legal, safe, fun, and emotionally and physically healthy way. Don't eat 10 pieces of chocolate.
Sing a song, do your spoonful of sugar, as Mary Poppins would say.
Yeah, do those things so that you can keep going. And of course, if those of you who are out there who are Christian, I'm Christian, Elizabeth is Christian, you better be praying and keeping with Jesus for all of this, so you aren't going to make it 5 seconds. So make sure that you're doing that too and taking that time. Never sacrifice your Jesus time for your 15 minutes. This is always in addition to that time, because that's where you need to keep your source from.
I know also, like, as a Christian, like, God gave us our creative abilities. And so it makes him happy when we are creating, because that's the talent that he gave us. And so, the Westminster Catechism says, glorify God, enjoy him forever. So when you're creating, like, you're basically doing what you're supposed to be doing. We don't have to make, the Christian life super hard and joyless. Like, enjoying life and creation, like, is part of glorifying God.
And it gives you a good focus and purpose for what you're doing as well. So use that. Cling to that. The point is, this is the whole part of our existence here, is to glorify God. So make sure you're keeping that as your focal point, because that is the truth of all of this. And if you're not leaning into that, then you're going to get off kilter real fast. All right. Well, for final takeaways here, we have do small, do simple, do consistent, have good incentives, and being part of a good community. And then you can make those steps forward, which is what me and Elizabeth are both doing. And we want you to be along for the journey as well. Anything final to encourage our listeners out there?
I think just remembering that taking small steps makes big things possible. So don't look at the big thing like something huge is going to crush you. Just like look at the small parts, because it's easy to carry, a single brick, to do a single thing. It's not easy to move a city, but you can move a brick. So you can do that and eventually get the whole city.
Yep.
That's where the consistency,
Absolutely.
all that comes in.
And make sure that you're just taking it one step at a time. And if you ever feel like it's getting too complicated, That is your warning sign that you may have in some way made it too complicated. Take a breather and take things off your list, because this can be as simple as you make it. No one's forcing you to do this, so take a step back, be intentional, take a few things off your list so you can keep saying yes and keep moving forward. And feel free to share in a comments below on YouTube or social media, wherever you're listening to this, where you are struggling or with some wins you've had or what you use to incentivize yourself and what keeps you going in this writing and marketing life. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for making time to be here today with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I always enjoy chatting.
And so where can people find you online?
At my website, ejkitchens.com.
Awesome. And she has a lot of cool stuff there. And I know I had a number of people when I reposted your interview that I had done on a previous channel. People kept coming going, oh, I love that interview. I'm like, this is great. Like, it was a year and a half ago, but that's wonderful. So I'm excited we could have you back here again, and make sure you do check out all of her fiction and her author help. It is awesome. Now go forth and be awesome.